Everyone, this is Sasha from Women's Fight News, and today I am joined by Martin Stark. And Martin, I am so excited to learn more about yourself, but also what you're going to be doing in boxing as well.
Oh, look, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I currently live, the Gamaraga people, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, and First Nations people. And my pronouns are he, him.
Fantastic. And thank you so much for joining us. Like I say, I'm really excited to learn more about yourself. And of course, you are the founder of the World Gay Boxing Championships. Before we go into that, what is your story? Kind of like how are you here? What was your journey?
So I suppose my journey starts in 2006. So my partner, who's now my husband, we go to the UK for a trip to meet the family. And I'm admitted to hospital because I have gallstones blocking my liver. I end up getting pancreatitis, collapsed lungs, septic shock. I'm admitted to intensive care for a month. I'm placed in 2 induced comas, have a tracheotomy, survive that, then transferred to hospital in Leeds, have a cancer scare, which thankfully it wasn't, come back to Australia, have major surgery, recover. Then I'm diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease called Addison's disease. And my body doesn't produce cortisol. And over the last 17 years, I've had 4 major surgeries, and I faced death, multiple times. I've been hospitalized over 70 times. But in 2017, I almost died from Addison's disease. And that really brought back the memories of being in my induced comas. So to really, as a strategy to combat PTSD, I had some self-defense classes, I had a boxing class, and I really discovered boxing. If you can imagine what it was like in UK school sports, you're always the last one to be picked. Well, that was me when it came to soccer or any kind of ball sports. I was a very good swimmer. I was a champion swimmer, but I was always the last person, and boxing was something I never considered. But I found out I could do boxing and catalogue my journey and love the sport, and really that's how it's all become.
Wow, what an incredible story. So with regards to your health, I mean, what position are you in now?
So I was in hospital 2 weeks ago with an Addisonian crisis. So I can lead a normal daily life. We have an excellent healthcare system in Australia, public health system. So I see my consultant every 3 months. There's lifelong medication. So there are always things I just need to be aware of, particularly boxing, hitting the pads and the bags. I might need to take another dose of cortisone, and where I train, I will also step back. And trainers have actually said, step back, Martin, sit this one out. So I've found very supportive coaches of my condition who push me, but also make sure I'm okay.
Wow. Okay. And so that's how you got into boxing then, and that's kind of, did you fall in love with the sport straight away?
Absolutely. It's when I started doing some boxing drills, I was posting on Instagram using the hashtag #GayBoxing, and there were fewer than 1,000 posts to gay boxing, like 20 million to boxing. And I wanted to go to the Gay Games. I was being cheeky, calling myself the future World Gay Boxing Champion. I wanted to represent Australia, win a gold medal, beat the Poms as a former Brit, but go there. But at the Gay Games I was aiming for, boxing wasn't offered as a sport. So I had a crazy idea. Why don't I organise the world's first boxing competition for the LGBTQ plus community and allies?
And it's so needed as well. So congratulations. So of course you are the founder of the World Gay Boxing Championships. Fantastic idea, fantastic initiative. So how long have you been going with that for?
3.5 years. I have a not-for-profit. I have a board. My lawyer is a director. I have an excellent board with diverse skill sets. People who've worked as a CFO, worked in technology, worked on strategic projects, worked in consulting, all those skills that you need.
Mhm.
And when I approached Boxing Australia, which is the peak body for amateur boxing in the country, within 2 weeks, the board had approved supporting the World Gay Boxing Championships and provided all the support I needed. And in my own state of New South Wales, Boxing New South Wales are accrediting. So really just guided me through. I had no idea what to do, but I knew where to source the expertise from, and built friendships and relationships with people who are genuine allies.
That's fantastic. And did you expect it to be as accepted as it was, considering there was nothing around what you're doing?
No, it was really amazing to get the
Yeah.
support, certainly from the Australian amateur boxing community. A lot of my activism and advocacy has been, reaching out to the professional world. And I mean, that has been a really hard nut to crack.
Mm-hmm.
I did have statements of support from the IBO, from the WBO, from the WBA, and the WBC. But the World Boxing Council have been fantastic. We have an ambassador, Charlie Hall, who's a WBC champion. We have a statement on their website which says they're proud to be an LGBTQ plus ally, support the World Gay Boxing Championships. But in that statement, it talks about human rights and how LGBTQ plus people face persecution, imprisonment, death in countries in the world. So it's just not one of those statements which are used to market. It was actually a very significant and meaningful statement about human rights.
Yeah, that's so true as well. And that's fantastic that you've got the support as well. So in the past over 3 years, kind of what's your journey been?
So the journey has been to reach people all over the world to participate in the championships.
Yeah.
At one point, we had people from all 6 inhabited continents. Unfortunately, with COVID, literally the price of travel, a lot of people haven't been able to come. But our vision is to hold an event every few years in a different city. And I've just met some incredible people who you see their story. There's one boxer in Nigeria who we were able to fund him getting some boxing gloves, some boxing boots, and some wraps. So literally, he was punching a bag with his fists.
Wow.
There's a lovely young man in Sri Lanka, and I told a boxing friend about him, and he works for a courier company. And he said, I'm going to send him some gear. So he sends him like some wraps, some training gear, using the company he works for, to send out to Sri Lanka. So we've just seen some real humanity from people supporting those who had inability to train, to go, look, what difference does it make having boxing gloves to somebody who has nothing, or like a threadbare gloves from, maybe the 1970s.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. And it's life-changing for people as well. And the fact that people are getting that love and support must be so amazing for them as well. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to share some stats. So 80% of all people have witnessed or observed homophobia on the sporting field. At the end of the 2020-21 soccer season in England, the PFA issued a report. It covered players in the EPL and the lower league divisions. 2 out of every 5 of players had received some form of online abuse. 1/3 of that abuse included homophobic abuse. There are other stats, but we know LGBTQ plus people participate in sport at half the rate of the wider population. And we are between 5 times to 20 times more likely to attempt suicide.
Wow. That is so high, isn't it?
Yeah,
wow.
But we know the difference sport makes to mental health, to physical health, for that sense of belonging. So, that's the return and impact. That's the real difference.
Shows the importance as well.
Yeah.
It shows there's such a need and an importance for what you are doing.
Yeah.
Wow. That's fantastic though, what you are doing and the work you're doing. So tell us about the event. It's coming up in just a few weeks'
So
time.
yeah, so the event is going to be held on the 18th and 19th of February at the ballroom of Royal Randwick, which is one of the main racecourses in Sydney in Australia. We're going to have 2 days of amateur boxing. We've got people who've got novice, intermediate and experience. We have masters boxing. We've had Gary St. Clair, who's a two-time, he was an IBO and IBF world champion. He's come on board as an ambassador. We've had many women champions come out providing statements of support.
Yeah,
It's just been awesome, and this is the first one.
yeah,
and this is about breaking ground, breaking those barriers.
mm-hmm.
In the state where I live, women could not compete in boxing until 2010.
It's just crazy.
And when I look what women have achieved in boxing in the last 30 to 40 years, that has enabled, and how many out LGBTQ plus women there
Mm-hmm.
have been in boxing, for example, Nicola Adams,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
their courage, their trailblazing has enabled me and others to have conversations and say, look what has been achieved when barriers were removed. So I would just like to thank women for what they have achieved in boxing, what LGBTQ plus women have achieved in boxing, and to really to enable inclusion, for the wider LGBTQ plus community.
yeah, because we have seen some really inspiring stories as well from especially women in the LGBTQ plus community. Like you say, Nicola Adams as well, and we're seeing many more people open about it, and it must be so inspiring for other people who can look up to them as role models.
Absolutely. I mean, when we think 2022 was the first time women headlined Madison Square Gardens and the O2 Arena, it sounds like tomorrow's world in the 1980s. In the future we will have women boxing at main event, but it would happen in 1989, not 2022. So kudos to all women who've achieved so much in a very short period of time, but what they have endured just to participate in boxing.
Yeah, that's it. It's crazy to think it was only last year we finally got them steps in, for sure. So with your event, how many people are you expecting to participate? And is there like a particular criteria?
Yeah, we're looking around about 100. We're probably around 6 at the moment. It's always hard because people can't get there at the last event. The criteria, we're aligning with Boxing Australia rules.
Mm-hmm.
So we have weight categories. So we selected 8 weight categories for each gender.
Okay.
Then we have experience categories of novice, which is 0 to 5 bouts, intermediate 6 to 9 bouts, experience 10 plus bouts.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have age divisions. So in Australia, it's youth, 17, 18, elite is 19 to 40, and then masters from there.
Okay. That's fantastic. And what countries are you expected to be represented as well?
So look, we're hoping to get some people from Africa. Unfortunately, I can't mention the countries at the moment for safety reasons.
Okay.
And we're hoping to get a few people from Singapore, from Japan, but just because they have been able to make it, we've had lockdowns. There's a lovely guy in Brazil, an amazing boxer in Mexico. So there was somebody from France and had a few from Germany, but that's been, it is what it is. But we'll do this again, and we want to make it a global event, and not everybody can come to Australia, and we'll visit you another time.
Yeah, because I do suppose it is tough, obviously, cost of living for people, and then the traveling, and it is tough. COVID certainly wouldn't have helped.
Yeah.
But is that your future plans to kind of move this event around the world eventually?
Yeah, every 2 years. And another really plan is, I'm so disappointed with what occurred in the UK last week with Chris Eubank Jr. and Liam Smith. I applaud Chris Eubank Jr. for his courage, his visible allyship. he wore the rainbow armband, the statement he made on Instagram, the abuse he received. A spectator at the end of the fight evaded security and called him the PWF word, FAGGOT word, and the swear word starting with the word C.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm deeply concerned that for an ally, that I don't call this person a fan, because you're not a fan if you're going to spew hate, and just to see the level of homophobia, and it went unchallenged, nothing was said at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is so disappointing, and the apologies afterwards, I've heard them before.
Yeah.
And now, because these incidents have occurred previously,
Mm-hmm.
I'm now looking for action on those apologies, and somebody to say, if homophobia is raised, to say, stop this, don't go there, this is unacceptable.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. I think in that press conference you're referring to, that should have just been stopped as the conversation was happening. Liam Smith shouldn't have been allowed to finish his sentence, let alone continue, repeat. And it wasn't until he was told to apologise, he apologised. It is a huge issue.
And to change sports, I mean, I grew up in the UK in the 1980s, and I remember watching darts, and there were never any women in darts. And, men were smoking. They always had, the drinking beer. From 2018 onwards, the Professional Darts Council, which I believe is owned or part owned by Matchroom Sports, were involved in the Rainbow Laces campaign. So they hold visible allyship darts tournaments supporting the LGBTQ plus community. So who I would like to speak with is Eddie Hearn, because I've seen what has been achieved with darts, and I'd really love to work with Eddie to say, look, can you work with me to do something similar for boxing? Can you imagine if we had a boxing bout with allies, just standing up for the community, just celebrating boxing, and if any homophobia is instantly out, and and we're just there to celebrate sport. I will bring the best crowd. I will bring the best drag queens and everything to make it the best boxing event on the planet. So that's my ask of Eddie Hearn, and I know he's a great guy, and he can help make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic. And is that what boxing needs, or just sport in general, to be fair, in the sense of like more visual representation as well?
It needs visible representation. It needs leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So, given the example of me reaching out to Boxing Australia, within 2 weeks they're issuing statements, making board decisions, working with us.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. In certain countries of the world, you will not be able to get a letter from your National Boxing Association to allow you to participate in an LGBTQ plus boxing competition. So imagine the racism, the prejudice that people would have had to go through.
Yeah.
But Boxing Australia and the New South Wales government worked with me to bypass that. Not to bypass, but found a solution. Okay, it's okay. We'll see. You can register with us. We understand. We want perhaps to help people overcome prejudice and experience prejudice, and just be part of the event.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just a very simple, but such a bold statement of allyship and an enabling inclusion.
Yeah.
So I really encourage people to just follow the leadership of other sports. It's the grassroots, it's the leadership, it's everybody.
Yeah, it definitely is. And the more that can get involved, obviously you've got a bigger united front then as well, and that's only going to help.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. So I know you've mentioned that you would like your event to take place every couple of years. What's your like big aim for the World Gay Boxing Championships?
So the big aim is, the reason I set this up to no longer exist. So that I set this up because of the level of homophobia and discrimination to the LGBTQ plus community. We still need to have separate LGBTQ plus events. And I also invite allies, so straight people are participating. Mm-hmm. So the reason I set this up to no longer exist, I believe that's at least 10 years away.
Okay. Yeah.
I believe we're going backwards on inclusion in sport. We're also going backward on the inclusion of LGBTQ plus people in sport. And that's my dream.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. I mean, with when we've got women's fight news, we always say one day we hope it doesn't exist, because if there's equality there, it doesn't need to be separate. But sometimes, even though we're in 2023, it feels like a lifetime before it looks like it can happen. And it's so sad at times, because sometimes we feel like communities have made steps forward, but when you get into it and you really look, it's still a long way away, isn't it? Unfortunately, at times.
It is. And I have the words courage and fear nothing tattooed on my back. If you can imagine a relay race, you're passing the baton to somebody else. So think about what women have achieved the last 30, 40 years. And then think about what the current generation can do for the next 10, 15 years to pass on that baton to the subsequent generation and future generations. You know, it's crazy that we're still having these conversations now, which were happening 20 plus years ago. You know, it's I remember when in the 1980s, when people were complaining about political correctness, you couldn't say anything anymore. And they're still the same people, they're still complaining about the same things, you know, but really we just don't want to put up with, we just want to enjoy the sport, have fun, and and for
it to be equal, because that's what everyone deserves, equality. I'm really, really looking forward to your event in a few weeks. Where can people find you on like social media or a website?
So on social media, our website is wgbc.org.au. On TikTok, we are at World Gay Box. On Instagram, we're WGBC Champs. To contact or get in contact with me, just find me on LinkedIn. If you just type my name, there's a website called Queer Bio, and I'm the generation where queer was a slur. I don't describe myself as queer,
right?
But there's a list of famous LGBTQ plus boxers.
Okay.
On that list is one of the Cray twins. So, like my claim to shame is one of the Cray twins was gay and was a boxer. So I'm on the same list as one of the Cray twins.
Wow. I didn't think anyone I would ever speak to would be on the same list as one of them.
Could you imagine them being security at a LGBTQ plus boxing event? There'd be no trouble.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be nice and calm, wouldn't it then? Martin, thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck with your event coming up, and I'm just so excited to follow it and just see what the future lies for you as well.
No, brilliant. Thanks very much. And, sending love and encouragement to all women and all men and everybody boxing in the UK.